recruiting site called Dice.
Yeah.
It's for technical people and things like that. So I put my resume on there, and this hacker guy found me, and I told him the story of having to sell the house, sell the cars. My first company, great sales, but just not enough margin. So that the lesson learned there, right? It's marketing is a battle of perception, not product. So even though you have a great presence, 10% margin is just not going to cut it. So I learned a tough lesson there as well. But this gentleman, the founder of this network security company, took a chance on me and sponsored me for my visa and so forth, and I became a key player. And back then, John, there was no database of names and numbers or anything like that.
Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your most true, authentic business voice. Heck, maybe it's just your most true voice. Get what you want, find what you need, and improve your results. The reason we believe wholeheartedly that people keep watching, listening, sharing, subscribing, and all that sort of thing is that we have people that join us who walk the walk. And tonight is no exception. So, literally from the Isle of Scotland all the way to California and Loch Technologies, Garry Drummond joins us this evening. Garry, welcome to the show.
John, thank you very much for having me on the show. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. So, folks, we had a very hearty pre-chat prior to going live here, and I got to tell you, what excites me most about all this is you hear so often from humble beginnings, but to me, this is like such a true humble beginnings. And when you hear the expression bootstrap, which you hear so often. Well, here's a couple of classic examples. I'm going to let Garry tell the story, but first, out of respect, Garry started as I don't know what the term kidpreneur, but what I will say is for someone who set the table with a business as a child, to current published author, to founding a company specializing in healthcare, security, safety, the highest levels of technology. There is a heck of a lot of ground to cover. And Garry, I'm going to ask you, of course I want to ask you about Kiddo Video, but before we do that, talk to me about what got you started and why you even felt the need to start a company so young.
Well, John, it's interesting. There's a lot of things that shape a person growing up, and what shaped me as a person was just a combination of things, and it all really started with adversity, right? Early on, right? Scarcity, hard work, right? Learning that nobody was coming to hand to help you, right? The people that really believed in me were very quiet in the background, like my dad, and I had a very good friend called Stuart, and of course, over the last 40 years, my wife Gwen. None of them, have made speeches. These are people that just showed up. And with me, curiosity was never switched off. And I looked at every job was a school, every setback was data. And what I, really felt, obviously today, and what I'm doing is love gave me all that meaning, and like Gwen and my kids, right? That was the drive that has the anchor for me. And at the end of the day, it's all about following through until you win. And I didn't realize I had all these skill sets from a very early age. And Kiddo video was when I was 14 or something at the time.
Yeah.
And that was when these video recorders were almost the size of a microwave, right? And I wanted to record. We were fortunate enough, we had one of these video recorders, and I wanted to kind of video people and give them a tape and record birthdays and other parties and give them the tape and come back a year later and add a little bit to the tape. And it's kind of innovative at the time, but of course, I didn't realize that, these consumer goods were going to come down in price, which made it, really affordable for people, to be able to do that themselves. But it was a real lesson learned, because I knocked on lots of doors. I got a lot of no's, and persistence and tenacity is obviously key in any successful business, even today. But that was a short-lived venture, because ultimately it didn't go anywhere. And plus my neck was pretty sore, my shoulders were pretty sore.
Right.
Up and down the hills of Scotland and take these videos. But it was again, I put an ad, saved up, put an advert in the paper, and nobody called. So I chapped the doors. Nobody was interested. But again, persistence, tenacity is the kind of key lesson, and very important lesson that I learned from that endeavor.
You use an expression in the book that it demands relentless execution, adaptability, and perseverance. What were you able to do? I mean, so you learned that it was hard when you were 14. How long did it take you to process that this is really hard to something more productive, and not just using different terminology, but the ability to be able to use that in a profession or in a future business? How old were you when you were having your first successful business venture?
Yeah. So I would say that success does take a while. And I think for me, obviously, coming to Silicon Valley and getting involved with startups allowed me to get firsthand at the playbook. And John, as you know, right, there's just hundreds of companies here that are all got great ideas,
right?
And it's what I learned is it's not about the great idea, it's about the execution. And being able to sell an unknown product from an unknown company takes talent. And I would say the persistence and determination that I learned from the early years, from not just the Kiddo video, and after that, when I was young, I used to deliver the milk. In Scotland, everybody gets their milk delivered to the front door.
So we used to in Philadelphia when I was a kid.
So I was, and it was it was the most. So my point of making, my first exciting job that paid a lot of money was the milk run.
Okay.
But let me kind of take you back to that. I was so excited about getting up at 1 a.m. in the morning to deliver milk to hundreds of customers. This is before I went to school, so from 1 to 7 in the morning, and then get ready, showered, and then off to school type of thing. But I was so excited about the opportunity to get up early. I used to get up early, get up at midnight, maybe 12:30, knock the doors of all the people that were on my milk cart with me, including the driver, to say, "Hey, it's time to get up. It's time to get moving. It's the sooner we get started, the sooner we can get finished." And the second lesson there was that efficiencies and being able to build a united vision, but build a united team to execute on the mission was also going to become very important in later years when I kind of got to Silicon Valley. But fast forwarding, 30 years ago when I got to Silicon Valley and the first startup company I was with, selling an unknown product from an unknown company was really, really hard. And going back to the kind of core tenets of organization, going back to the core tenets of having a united team to, so another make sure everybody was kind of rowing in the same direction was really important, John. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And Garry, I should know this, but what got you to the Silicon Valley?
Yeah. Yes. So, well, there's a lot of people who have inspired me throughout the years, which kind of led me to entrepreneurship. But I don't know if you know this, John, but Scotland has a very rich history of inventions with many Scottish inventors, which have actually made a significant contribution to science, technology, and engineering. So I've been inspired over the years by several, key people, and I'll list a few, and I'll kind of make it relevant for you. But
Sure.
People like James Watt, right, the inventor of the steam engine, key figure in the Industrial Revolution. You have Sir Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone. You have John Logie Baird, who invented the television. You had Sir Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, the first antibiotic out there. The list actually goes on and on and on. But what did it for me was this guy called James Clerk Maxwell. He was a physicist and a mathematician who developed the theory of electromagnetic radiation. So I'm in the wireless business today. I'm a wireless engineer. He led the development of radio, television, and other communication technologies, and ultimately influenced the direction of Sir Robert Watson, who invented the radar. This is a technology that's used in modern warfare and aviation today. So a lot of the battles that are taking place, you talk about drones, you talk about radar systems.
Oh yeah,
that technology was something I was really interested in. So I was interested in the sciences from a very early age. But these were the people that I was kind of tracking back in the day. And then fast forward today, right? I follow a guy called Geoffrey Hinton, who's a Nobel, Prize winner in physics.
Right.
And he helped the foundation of modern AI and deep learning. And so there's this kind of constant learning and constant influence for me to always be adaptive in my interest in learning. And that kind of got me into, entrepreneurship.
So here's the follow-up. So because there's a cool article in the Scotsman that talks about the founders of 22 Scotland-based ventures that headed to Silicon Valley or Singapore. But my question specifically to you is, what gave you the guts to go? I understand that there's this natural sort of flow, but it requires a lot of guts to just hop on a plane and show up. What gave you the guts?
Yeah. So, well, we touched upon the Kiddo video, and we talked about, obviously fast forward into the Silicon Valley, area. But I'm a Scottish kid from a very small town in Shire called Alloa, and although I ran the milk run.
At 12:30 in the morning.
There's a great story about rescuing a greyhound. And there's some really true lessons to be learned here. And then, of course, I moved to Silicon Valley with nothing. I actually came with no visa, no job. My wife and I had been obviously married for a few years, but my son was 18 months at the time. He's now, 29 and a third-year medical student in Colorado. So we really we came to California believing in the dream. But what I wanted to kind of share with the team was that my dad was a big inspiration as well, and he influenced me. He was just a great man, and he got involved with a Greyhound. And I don't know if you're familiar with Greyhound racing here in the US, but I know it's got some, there's a lot of, kind of stick around Greyhound racing and things like that. But I've got a couple of brothers, and my dad, I learned this many years later. My dad got a Greyhound, not because he was really interested in greyhounds, although he did enjoy the greyhound racing and he did enjoy, training them and things like that. He got a greyhound because he wanted to keep all the boys together. He wanted to keep those focused in on a project and not going off and doing other things. And we were in a situation one evening where some of these greyhound owners that had come over from Ireland, they had brought this dog with them, and this dog was constantly getting last, getting beat. It was always last in these races and things like that. And they were going to typically they shoot the dogs. That's what they do. And that's I know it's not what people.
No, I understand, but
that's kind of what it was. But my dad, you could say, was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and my dad said, "Hey, I'll take the dog off you, and I'll you don't have to shoot the dog. I'll take it. We'll try and figure out what's wrong with him." Well, the long and short of the story is that just through in Scotland we have the mechanical hare that goes round and round the greyhound track. That's what the greyhounds chase. Well, these the people that originally owned the dog were sprinting this dog, and of course he kept on getting beat because he just wasn't a sprinter.
Right.
They didn't give the dog the time, the love, the care, and the time to heal. Well, one evening, John, the mechanical hare failed to stop, and the dog kept on running. And yes, he was last at the first bend, then fourth at the second bend, and then he was third at the next bend. And before you know it, 580 yards later, he was leading the pack. And my dad says, "Oh my God, he's not a sprinter, he's a long distance runner." And he broke the track record that night, and everybody came running out to understand and figure out what the name of this new fast greyhound dog that my dad had got. And my dad said, "Hey son, just take the dog away, don't speak to anybody, and keep quiet, because we found out the true potential of the dog." And it wasn't through any specific talent. It was through another lesson that I learned, which was being persistent and patient and caring and loving towards an animal, because they do reciprocate, right? And this dog won 23 open races across Scotland and was just one of the best dogs ever in Scotland. And it was because we took the time to understand the dog, its capabilities, and it was a long distance runner and not a sprinter.
My God, because as you said, because you took the time. It's spectacular. Spectacular life lessons. So you wind up in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
You've got over 25 years of entrepreneurial experience. You literally went through 2 startups, if I'm not mistaken, before founding Loch, right? There was 2 other companies that you were able to bootstrap and fully develop.
Yeah, I was a key hire for both startups.
Right.
The first startup was a network security company. and I had just got off the boat with my. So actually, I just got off the boat. I think it's really important to understand after my lessons with the Greyhound racing and learning my mathematics at the Greyhound track, learning the betting, 3-1, 2-1, all that bookies runner type of stuff. I did actually have a company in the UK called Microworld. I was in my early 20s at the time. I finished college. After school, I set up a company called Microworld, and it was doing very well. It actually sold millions of dollars of products.
Wow.
But it actually, and it was actually on the front cover of the Financial Times in the Silicon Valley area in London. But it was a mail order company, John, and you just can't run a business on 10% thin margins.
Okay.
And even though we're selling millions, 10% margin, you pay the bills, not a lot left. And I had personally guaranteed everything, which meant that when things weren't working out, I had to tell my wife, look her in the eye and say, honey, I'm sorry that, we need to sell the house, we need to sell the car, spoons, forks, everything in order to pay off all our debt. And so I wound the company up, and I had enough for a couple of tickets to California. And my wife, who's been very supportive all these years, and in fact still very supportive in my kind of crazy endeavors, said yes, and she came with me, and we sold the house. So that's how we got to California. We had enough money to get we came with 2 suitcases and a high chair. And then I put my resume on Dice, which is kind of like just like a
not like Indeed.
Yeah, no, it's the text version of you're looking for jobs way back in the late 1998. So it was a recruiting site called Dice.
Yeah.
So for technical people and things like that. So I put my resume on there, and this hacker guy found me, and I told him the story of how to sell the house, sell the cars. My first company, great sales, but just not enough margin. So that the lesson learned there, right? It's marketing is a battle of perception, not product. So even though you have a great presence, 10% margin is just not going to cut it. So I learned a tough lesson there as well. But this gentleman, the founder of this network security company, took a chance on me and sponsored me for my visa and so forth, and I became a key player. And back then, John, there was no database of names and numbers or anything like that. We had just the telephone book. Hey, when was the last time you saw a telephone book, right? But there was a few sales guys, and everybody started from A to Z, and I started from Z to A.
What categories would you say were strong for you as you're going through the yellow pages? What categories tend to work for you?
Yeah, and so back in those days, financial services companies were really worried about hackers getting unauthorized access to the network. So the whole internet boom, people were going online for the first time. So that was a huge problem on just doing that securely. And of course, the team that I was with at the time were all kind of experts in this area, highly skilled, and they could easily circumvent the vulnerabilities associated with those implementations and so forth. So we became pretty successful pretty quickly, and then we decided to scale the business by building that penetration testing capability into an appliance, and that really changed the business model. So instead of sending out a team to do a penetration test and figure out vulnerabilities, we built a box. We built a black box that allowed us to write code, and we sent that to customers instead. That market changed into what was called vulnerability management. And so we were pioneers of an industry in the early 2000s called vulnerability management, vulnerability assessment. And that is, and with the deal that we did with the financial services organization, That allowed us to get VC funding and get the company to the next level. But everybody was trying to get online back then, and not a lot of people knew the risks and threats associated with online e-commerce at that point in time, John.
So the vulnerability that you're speaking of, right? I mean, did I get it right? Vulnerability management.
Yeah.
I'm not that technically fluent, so I'm acting all proud of myself that I got the term right. But what were you? So you talk about developing code, and I won't embarrass myself by thinking I sound like a tech person. I don't. But all I would want to say is early on, you figured out that that would actually matter in generating revenue and or like as you talked about building and scaling companies and margins and what have you. How were you able to convince other companies that that actually mattered? How were you able to like tell the story or demonstrate that they should take that seriously?
Yeah, so that actually was quite easy because the bigger the problem, right? The bigger the company, the more employees, the bigger the problem.
Okay.
And so vulnerability assessment, which is part of vulnerability management, was the ability to identify, you know, software flaws. This was the ability to identify vulnerabilities within the computing stack, the way computers talk
Right.
to one another and that go across the network. So the bigger the company, the bigger the problem, and there was a real need. True pioneers in this space. There was just a few of us building that capability. But the race becomes scalability and being able to do it in a way that's you can send out these appliances, you can manage it effectively, and I'm talking about global installations and things.
Sure.
Like that. A technical team that can deliver on that, John. But it's interesting if you it's interesting when you set up a company and Loch's going through that right now with Kent UES, whereby we're building a new set of products for drone detection. There's a bunch of products behind me here that do Kent UES drone detection, and so you've heard the saying, right? You got to follow the money, and
Yeah.
I've now learned that I'd rather be lucky with my timing in the marketplace than have the best brains and build the best products.
Mhm.
Very often, being lucky and at the right place at the right time is key. And back then, we were lucky with finding through penetration testing. This is manual penetration testing. That there was a need to have a continuous assessment of the risks. So if you think about it, right, you run a penetration test of a network. It's only as good as the results that day because the operating systems change, the vulnerability therefore changes, and therefore you need to constantly do this on a 7 by 24 hour basis, monitoring of these risks and threats. So that became a bigger market called vulnerability management back then, and that's how the company ultimately got acquired by a larger tech company. That's always the goal here in Silicon Valley, is to start off small. Loch started off in a garage, and now we've got products deployed all over the world, and we have bigger technology companies saying, "Hey, how come we never thought of that?" So, and it's because we're close to the problem. So when you're setting up any business, you got to keep it real. You've got to make sure that you're solving a real problem. And the problem that we have today with the AI bubble is that there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of talk about the benefits of AI, and not a lot of people really understand the value of it and how AI can really benefit business. But we're digressing a little bit there. So hopefully that answers your question. And
Definitely. It definitely does. And to me, one of the things that as you are, like that you'd rather be lucky. And I find that a great way to convey a message, that I'd rather be lucky than just having the world's best this and the world's best that. Um, you read a book, and now you're able to, obviously you're qualified to do that simply based upon taking a company. I love your accent, and I mean that as a high compliment. You say from your garage, from so I sound like so Philadelphia, PA. Your garage. So I like your version way better. But taking it and then scaling it and setting it in motion with some of the most advanced technology. But I'm a big believer in, you've got to make these things human too, because people have to be able to relate to a story and relate to what you have to say. When you wrote the book, I'll ask you this, like, so as you wrote the book, what would you say was one of the more important messages you wanted to convey? What mattered to you in this wide breadth of knowledge that you have? What were some of the most core important things that you wanted to convey to someone who would pick up the book and read it?
Right, that's a great question, and I've typically worked 80, 90 hours a week, and
Wait a minute, give me that again. I
I
work.
work I work typically 80 to 90 hours a week,
Wow.
sometimes longer,
Wow.
and I realized very early on the meaning of why they say it's lonely at the top. You've probably heard that, right?
Right?
1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, work to be done, and there's just really no one else around to get the job done other than your own resources. And I felt that I had to put together some bootstrap guiding principles
Mhm.
to help yeah, focus getting through this huge list of tasks that need to get done, and do it in a way that's proficient, and do it in a way. Uh, so it so it turns out that you know during these many years of lonely nights, my wife's sleeping, all my kids are sleeping, and
Right.
I always spend quality time with the kids, and get them bath and get them in, bed, and story time and all that. We're kind of past that as we building up the lot, but the point being is that you still time to you have to spend time with the people that matter most,
Ah.
because she suffered just as much as I did in terms
Mhm.
of trying to uh, bootstrap our company to the next level. And I was always a big fan of trying to figure it out, and trying to solve the problem, do it with little resources. I've never been one to ask for money. I've never really been a big fan of venture capital, because if you think about it, John, right, the reason why we go into entrepreneurship is to build something, to be creative, and ultimately sell it. When you take venture capital from somebody, you're really no longer the boss. You
Yeah.
offer the money,
Yeah.
and they become the boss. So you've got to now. There's a time and a place to ask for money, and you want to take that money when you're ready to scale, and that means you need to have millions of dollars in sales in place,
Mhm.
so that so that the terms are in your favor. So it's not that taking it too early is bad. Taking it at the right time is what I'm trying to articulate. So the point I'm making is that my top 10 kind of bootstrap guidelines was me going through how do I, stay healthy, physically, mentally, and emotionally,
Mhm.
during these long years. I've been at it for 12 years now, and still have a healthy social life with and wife and my extended families,
Mhm.
and my friends that are around me and give them time. And what I wanted to kind of carve out is that the balance that's required. And there's no point in killing yourself on a company and if you're not going to be there at the end to reap the benefits. So I wanted to do the book. And so during my, 7 to 80 hours a week, I said, hey, why don't I write a book? And I thought, okay, a couple hundred pages won't kill me. Well, the book ended up being 650 pages, and my editors were saying, hey, it's too big for a business book, cut it back by 200 pages. So the book's run about 400 pages right now. And the uncut version, the things that they took out is actually on the Bootstrap CEO website, which is interesting because I do promote health, meditation, and good food after each chapter, and try and make sure that other inspiring entrepreneurs realize that the journey is much more than just building a product and selling it, although there's a lot of satisfaction to that. It's about being fit and healthy at the end of the journey, or wherever that exit may be. And I kind of outlined that in the book. So I just wanted to articulate, the rules that have allowed me to stay healthy and stay fit through the journey, through the process, from passion to profit.
Yeah, I'm laughing with you because it even says on the Amazon page, your page, and folks know that I will have the link in the bio, the Amazon link to buy the book, and you can get it in Kindle form or hardcover. But here's why I'm laughing. It literally says to download the Kindle version because it is such a long length. It may take an extended period of time to download the book. So I love the fact that you included that much data, wisdom, takeaways, what have you, that in a 386-page printed version, it looks great. I want to ask you one more question for this first pass, which to me is this. So you say, I typically now, 12 years in, if I heard you correctly, right, that I typically work 80 to 90 hours a week now. Is it possible from your vantage point to be able to explain to someone who has not hit your levels the level of work and perseverance that it takes, because you're in a different playing field now, right? I mean, you just are, based on your experience and what have you. You're at a different level. Are you able to translate how you've changed or what you went through so that somebody who is not as far along in the journey can be able to take your blueprint and run with it?
Yes. And I've actually, because I'm still innovating,
right?
Still building brand new products.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of, turmoil around our economic, markets at the moment with these wars and things like that. Certain thing. Loch is still very much innovating here to protect our military and critical infrastructure. And but what I have learned and what I would recommend is we understand our revenue, model. And that means that we don't chase, really every shiny new object. So you're innovating, you built a product.
Got it.
If it's consumer based, that's a little bit different. I'm talking about traditional enterprise business to business type sales. That's my experience here. But I've implemented a revenue operational model here, which we have a kind of closest to the whole type model. What I mean is existing customers, bring in, the quickest to bring in revenue, and that means upside, that means expansion. The next, wave of the furthest from the hole is definitely, leveraging partners to identify via their trusted relationships new business opportunities. And then the furthest away from the revenue hole is new business. And what I've realized is rather than Loch trying to, kick down the front door and find the next casino or find the next healthcare organization, bring it in one closer to the hole, leverage these partnerships that are in place that do have already pre-existing relationships to, drive revenue much quicker and faster. And that has been, hugely successful for the company.
Mhm.
And it's allowed me to, again, delegate a little bit more of a lot of the, sales motion, you could say, to be able to have a little bit better predictability into the business from a regular, kind of annual recurring basis. And so that's actually allowed me to buy back time. And you can see from behind me there's just a ton of books. And one of my favorite books right now is from another author called Dan Morrell. He's got a book called Buy Back Time. And he teaches it's better to accept 80% of somebody else doing it than taking up 100% of your time. So let's just kind of distill that. So it's better to accept, most entrepreneurs are kind of perfectionists and they want to say nobody can do it better than me. But guess what? That's what consumes the 100 hours a week. And what Dan in his book teaches you and what I've implemented and what I've started to learn over the years, and that's why, I was off all day yesterday because it was my birthday. And delegation is that buy back, once you implement, some delegation strategies, it allows you to buy back time and that allows you to be, as an entrepreneur, more on the business, John, as opposed to in the business. And Garry Drummond for many, many, many years has been in the business because I'm innovating and I'm writing patents and I'm traveling and doing what I'm doing. But I've now kind of taken more of a, step back and said, hey, I'll be happy with 80% accomplishment on this task as opposed to 100% perfection because I get all of my time back. And that's the win that I'm now going to explore with my kind of just go forward management style and business practices.
Listen, we have barely scratched the surface, but you've covered so much for me in a short amount of time. I'm honored that you made the time. And Garry, I meant what I said. The link for the book will be in this podcast bio. Obviously, Loch.io will be in the bio. Your LinkedIn profile. Hold it up again. Hold it up. Don't up. There. Boom. I want everybody to see it in its entirety. And again, folks, you will have the link to buy this book, and you should. As you can see, Mr. Drummond there already has it all tabbed off.
I do.
And he wrote it. So the fact is, to me, I'm excited. You made this great. You tell a heck of a story, and I love the fact that you were able to do all of this and that you keep innovating and that you keep staying hungry. It's really inspirational. Garry Drummond, thanks so much for showing up for me today and showing up for our audience. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, John, and it was a pleasure being here on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep liking, watching, listening, subscribing, telling all your friends, and we'll keep coming back for more. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day, all. Talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.